Thanks, Chair. Look, I'll be brief as well, and I think Deputy Carey, to be fair, has asked most of the questions that I wanted to ask anyway. So, look, I understand, Minister Chambers, that you've been inundated with requests in regards to this year's funding. But I suppose it must be said that I suppose initially we were looking at getting a decision by October, that snowballed into December, and now it's looking like February at best, I'd imagine at this stage. As I still know that a number of clubs have until the 27th of January to furnish your department with further details. So, look, if you could, I won't hold you to a date, but if you could give us an indicative timeline of when that announcement is most likely, that would be grateful, because as previous deputies have said, a number of clubs are getting very anxious at this stage and they have big plans ahead of them. Can I just ask you two other quick questions, and it's in relation to the percentage of approved projects initially approved in previous years. Can you give us any, I suppose, indication of how many of those have never proceeded to full drawdown, maybe in the previous 2 or 3 years? I note that you said that 6 million was carried over from last year, so maybe that answers that question. But for previous years as well, if you have that detail. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Minister.
Minute, is it? Yep. To answer all that, okay.
Yeah.
I'll try.
I allow you a little latitude.
Well, just to say, so we're trying to maximise, just to Deputy Carey's question, we're trying to maximise the amount with Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and we expect it to be significantly up on the amount allocated. But I'm not going to announce the final the outcome of that until we actually announce the grants. So that will be finalised when we announce the grants. But I expect we've had positive discussions and that will be finalised. And in terms of the date, as Deputy O'Sullivan mentioned, we extended the assessment window, or the submission window, because of COVID. So it was originally opened, as Deputy Naughton mentioned, in November. We extended it to March of last year to allow clubs to submit the application in a very detailed way, so that they could get all the documentation together. We've also allowed, and because we have a record number of applications, we've also allowed for second chance submissions. So there's up to 20 or 30% of applications.
So, Minister, I'm going to stop you there and I'm going to give you an additional 2 minutes on the last.
I suppose just to start, Deputy or Minister Chambers said February is a good month to announce grants. I think every month is a good month to announce sports capital grants, so hopefully the sooner we can get that announcement, the better. Just the second thing, just to commend himself and his team in his department. They've been excellent in terms of liaising with us, of course, and just to echo the sentiments of Deputy Carey, if you give us an indication of how much you requested from the department yourself, or give us an indication of a percentage, that would be appreciated. And just my last one is just to follow up on the query. Can you give us the information maybe for 2020, 2019, or any schemes beforehand, and the percentage of projects that never proceeded to full drawdown? Thank you.
Lots of questions. Lots of counties.
Don't forget the South West anyway. That's what I'm saying. The floor is yours. There's about 3 minutes for me.
Yeah, thanks, Million. So just back to Deputy Carey. So we are going to try and maximise the envelope. It will be significantly up, I expect, on what we currently have, and I'm not going to go into what our negotiations or what the outcome will be announced when we announce the package, but I think it'll be a positive for clubs, and we're ambitious to help as many clubs as possible. And going back to Deputy O'Sullivan's point, I'll ask the department to. COVID has impacted a number of clubs around drawdown over the last 2 years, where construction. And then, as Deputy Griffin mentioned, difficulties with fundraising. So one of the things we're trying to do in this round will be to allow the amount to be much closer to the ask, and obviously if we increase the envelope, that will be more possible, and that means the drawdown will be more likely, and that's important. To answer Deputy Dillon's question, yes, there's a split between the per capita, which then reflects the county population, and then based on the demand per county as well. I know Deputy Griffin was involved in kind of developing that model, and it has worked well, so that there's a fair split, and that particularly rural and regional areas get a fair share of funding as well. And just to Deputy Naughton's point on defibrillators, I will ask Sport Ireland to follow up on the legitimate points you've made on defibrillators. We've supported the purchase of many defibrillators through the equipment programme. Some will be included in the sports capital as well. And through the sporting organisations, we funded many defibrillators in the announcement before Christmas. We were correct that we can't have an adverse court outcome impacting the fair usage and the incentive for people to purchase defibrillators. On Deputy Muireann O'Connor's point, we did include in this round specific focus on female participation in sport, so clubs that are trying to attract women and girls in participating in their local clubs will benefit to a greater extent, and that's something we're keen to do in all the funding schemes. And as I said, I know people want to see this happen as quickly as possible. We expect it to conclude very shortly. The second chances will be finished in the next week. Then it's a case of just finalising the envelope, which we're concluding, and the assessments are complete. So we expect this to be announced in early February, and there will also be an appeal mechanism. But we are conscious as a government that we need to, it's important to give momentum to sport and to volunteers and people who are participating in communities, and allow the government to match that ambition that is in our local communities with progress in terms of community infrastructure. And I think the sports capital round will deliver on that when we announce the conclusion and the grant outcomes in early February. And I expect the next time I'm standing up here answering questions, we won't be still awaiting the current round. So thank you, Chair.